Let's finish it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms, and this is a show about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, please do. If you haven't seen us on YouTube, you might, because Dave has been working out and looking fantastic.
Nope.
He's ready for beach season, even though we're going into the fall. Also, we have the Tiger Interview Series on the other channel. If you want to go over to the Tiger Interview Series podcast, that's more baseball specific, more hard in the paint for skill acquisition and skill mastery. Basis of the show is to interview very smart individuals, way smarter than me on the baseball space, and trying to really open up conversations. I think that's a huge key to a lot of this, is having candid conversations. You might not agree with it, but that's okay. As long as you're listening to it, it'll challenge your thinking and you'll have a better thesis to how you can attack your career. So if you are interested in that, head over to the Tiger Interview Series, subscribe to that, and subscribe to the Rawlings Tigers YouTube channel. That was a pretty
that was really good.
Pretty lengthy intro. I mean, guys, to be honest with you, we need more subscriptions, and also we need feedback. I get the feedback through text. I have players that text me. I even have people that are starting to Facebook message me, which I have not had when we first started this journey of ours in the podcasting space. I really enjoy those messages. And if you want to help us out even more, because again, that fuels us. But if you want to help us out even more, it gives us better, what do you call it, clout in the space?
Insight.
Yeah. Clout for when we want to bring on guests. Because if I go to, let's just say, hypothetically, I wanted to go to Sal Frisella, and he looks at our reviews, and our reviews are not up to par, meaning like a lot of reviews, he doesn't see the value of coming on because he's at a higher level than us right now. So that's just how the podcasting and social space works. So when you guys get a chance, please give us a review. We love seeing that, and smash that subscribe button. Now, on to the topic of today. The tryouts have ended. It's been quite some time. And I didn't want to do this topic right out of the get-go because a lot of emotions stirred during that time. And I wanted to make sure that my thoughts were clear and concise before jumping into the topic. There's a lot of emotions that come into being accepted and being rejected. Mm-hmm. Baseball and sports is very tribal. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you caught me mid-drink, sorry.
How's that French press?
Very good. How's that? Very good. That's why I keep going back to it.
What do you taste right now? Woody, right?
Yeah.
Bark?
Yeah. It's good.
So if you guys don't know, I'm a coffee connoisseur. I love all types of coffee.
He brought his own French press in. He is a nerd.
It tastes so good though. I don't care what you say. It's my thing.
His office is a barista right now.
Yeah, if you guys want to come to my office, it's $2 a cup, but it's BYOC. Bring your own cup. So $2. That's why I've dropped it down from the $3 to $2 because you have to bring your own cup.
Better than Starbucks pricing.
Yes. So, anyways, if you want coffee, just come on over to the Rawlings Tigers Training Center National Headquarters, and Spiker Barista is off and running.
Oh boy!
I will be bringing my pour over set probably in the next week. So
I have no idea what that is, but that's all right.
All right. So I've been rejected. You've been rejected.
Sure.
I've been accepted. You've been accepted.
Sure.
It's hard to manage those emotions when you are a 15-year-old, even a 14-year-old. Like when
it's hard to manage those expectations.
Yeah, give you guys perspective. The people that are involved with the baseball and youth sports space right now, you guys are pioneers. Because this space has not experienced what it's experiencing right now with a lot of tryouts and coming out and actually showcasing your skill set at an early age. Back in my day, we traveled 4 miles through the snow. We didn't have necessarily tryouts. It was like, hey, I know this guy who plays really well. He had an awesome 4-game set against us. He's a really good player. We have a tournament coming up in September. Let's see if he wants to play with us.
I'm going to tell you this, go a little older, but we just signed up at the association. They just put you on a team.
It was a draft.
Well,
it was literally a draft.
But I never understood that, because how'd they know if you were good? Like, they just saw David Burkby. How'd they know if I was good or bad or not? I just think you got thrown on a team.
Yeah, and then from there, it started at my age. Like, you were a little bit older than me. They started having select teams. That was the thing, select. Mm-hmm. So it was you didn't go into the association and get drafted. It was the coach actually selected players to be on his team.
Sure.
And then it grew into travel. So we would have maybe 1 travel tournament, 2 travel tournaments at most. But it was and then the league itself was only again select group of people, teams that played, and you basically represented your association in that league. That's how it was in St. Louis. I'm assuming that it's the same in majority of other cities. Now it's gotten to a point where clubs have taken over. It's taken more of the soccer space. Soccer is the driver of all this. I've always said I feel like soccer is 10 years ahead of us. Mm-hmm. And the reason I think that is because, one, I think the Europeans had it right with their setup and their model with their youth systems.
Like their academies.
Yeah, their academies. And then those academies started coming over to here in the United States because you had the people that would play over in played on the MLS teams. They would actually take over and start doing camps, and then they started like, hey, well, why don't we just start a club like we did over back in the homeland? And then they started creating these different academies. That's how I see it. If you're in soccer, and if that is completely wrong, please tell me and be like, Spiker, you are so full of it. You're just shooting from the hip. But that's how I've seen it. And I did play soccer when I was younger, and they did have those academies when I was younger. So I do think it's in that 10-year time frame. Baseball, however, is now in that club space, and there's tryouts from literally 7U. I've seen tryouts on Facebook for like 5U. Yeah. And going all the way up to 18U. The only difference is that the clubs are not attached to a professional organization, where in soccer they are attached to a professional organization. Yep. So like St. Louis City, is it called City now?
The sports St. Louis FC.
FC, which we're getting an MLS team, which I'm super excited about. They are now starting their 17, 18. I think they're starting their 15s and 16s.
They'll probably have it go all the way down.
Yeah, this upcoming season they're doing it. And literally the parents don't pay anything, kids don't pay anything. The organization actually supports all of it. Yeah, crazy, right? But I didn't know this. One of my clients was telling me that if one of their players signs a European contract, that contract trickles down. So they have transaction costs. So whenever there's a transaction, that money trickles down to, if that player played for St. Louis FC and they signed with, let's say Barcelona, sure, that transaction between like the pros, that actually goes all the way down to the academies.
So would they get money on it? Or?
They get money on that transaction.
That's cool.
So it's advantageous for them to get the best talent.
Sure.
Because then they'll get that huge transaction, because the soccer contracts are massive.
Yeah.
And those transaction costs are going to be massive.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
That's really cool.
Kind of cool little setup.
Sure.
More capitalistic, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, back to the topic of at hand, which players, I feel like I want to give you a mindset of if you do get rejected, because it's not fun. Not fun at all. And I'm a second team kid. Whenever someone says, "Oh, we're not on the first team," I was like, "Guys, I was a second team kid, and I made it to D1 baseball. So don't fret if you don't make it to the
We've had a lot of those guys,
quote unquote top team." One of our best players that we've had in this organization, he just signed with the Tampa Bay Rays. He's down in Florida right now playing in their organization. He was a second team kid.
15 and 16.
And you've said that at 15U, if we had a third team, he potentially would have been on that third
Probably.
team.
Yeah, he was undersized. He just hadn't developed yet. I mean, he played the game well. He was just small.
Yeah, which goes back to like eye test and everything like that. Rafael Lopez, when we've had him on the closing pitch in the Tiger interview series, he says that he was overshadowed because he was a smaller guy, but was really good on a skill set wise. That's the same thing at Kenny Piper. Kenny Piper was very good at his skill sets. You just were worried that the size wouldn't produce the result. And so it ended up pushing him down to the second team. And he ended up making top team 17U and 18U. He was part of one of our national championship teams in the Premier, and was a huge catalyst for that squad. So when you get into a tryout, understand like their nerves are going to be on you constantly. Like you're going to be flowing through. And there's a lot of kids that will go to it and they're like, man, I didn't do well. Like this is so disappointing. And then they get the call of, hey, we're going to put you on this team. And it might not be the expectation that you thought it would be. Let's flip that conversation around and say, is this the club that you want to be? Forget the team, forget top team, second team, third team, fourth team. Is this the club that you want to be a part of? And if the answer is yes, it shouldn't really matter unless you really know that, hey, they didn't see my best. Why wouldn't you take it?
I mean, that we've talked about it before. That's a part of the process of literally educating yourself on where, because there's so many different options. Whether it's in St. Louis, nationally, some other market, there's a million different options. And if you really kind of do your research and ask questions, some people train a little bit more. Some people have different thoughts, beliefs, etc. So if you do your homework and kind of know that I'm going to fit in really well with Club A, then yes, it probably shouldn't matter.
Or even the coach. Like
that's true.
If the coach is right, what does it matter if it's top team, second team, third team? Here's another example. I was a second team kid in my club that I was in because it was just the start of club baseball. I had a decision because I was a junior college kid. I just wasn't a Division I kid out of high school. I was a junior college kid. And there was a number of junior colleges that I was targeting. All the colleges that I was targeting it was a Division I junior college. The school that I ended up deciding to go to was a Division II junior college. If I was worried about status, I would have gone towards the D1 JUCO. But I would have not been served correctly because I went towards the coach and went towards the program.
Right.
And just to let you guys know, the program does not exist anymore. It got cut. But the person that was behind that, Clint Culbertson and Ramon Grado, they were phenomenal coaches. And they had literally nothing. They just had literally a patch of grass and a couple fences and then a really shitty cage that had holes in it.
Welcome to JC baseball.
With concrete, not turf, concrete. So we're destroying our cleats while we're swinging. And the baseballs were taped, taped together. It wasn't like, because the strings were falling apart. They didn't have enough money. The program didn't have enough money to buy new baseballs because they had to afford new baseballs for the spring season.
Right.
So we're hitting with duct tape and jock tape baseballs down in this cage.
Yeah.
I looked beyond the status of, the facilities are nice. Oh, the uniforms are nice. Like example, the uniforms we had to pay for that. We had to do fundraising. We worked Kansas City Chief games, concerts, NASCAR. You name it. We literally had zero sleep and a lot of nights because we were trying to fundraise for our season. And then we'd have to go back around and actually practice the game and get ready for our season. I wasn't worried about the stats and I wasn't worried about the rejection. Did the rejection hurt? Oh yeah. It was deep.
You were worried about yourself. You knew, see again, it goes back to you knew you. You knew the people that you needed to surround yourself around to get yourself better, right? Mm-hmm. So you didn't care about the program's funding. You cared that Clint was the right coach for you and that was the right place to get you developed to then find the next right place, right? The next step. That's what you knew.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't going into it blind. You weren't going into it guessing. Right? You had a plan, and that fit within your plan.
Well, and we talked about last podcast, smell the leather. I was actually wrong. It's not Bentleys. It's Rolls Royces.
Gotcha.
And I smelt the leather on the Division I school. I took an unofficial visit to Notre Dame because that's where I wanted to go. And then I took another unofficial visit to Missouri State, toured their facilities, toured the campus, literally took everything in, and I realized Missouri State is where I want to go. That's the program that I want to be a part of. So I smelt the leather. I wasn't ready for that, even though I thought I was. Mm-hmm. I wasn't ready for it. So literally all I was thinking about in junior college was, I'm getting to Division I baseball. Mm-hmm. And my second thing is that I'm going to make sure that I make this team as good as I possibly can through my own skill sets and lead by example. I couldn't put that into words when I was at that time, but I was totally motivated on that aspect. Yeah. And the rejection of a club coach telling me in a hotel room, I've told this story before in the closing pitch, that I was not a Division I athlete at all. That hurts. That really does hurt because that's a person that you look up to, and he ends up laying down the hammer and honestly, he didn't know anything about me. He just had me for like 2 weeks. Didn't even do any training with me. It's not like how it was now where we actually see our players constantly. So we know the person pretty well. Mm-hmm. He literally saw me for like 2 or 3 weeks. We had a meeting. He's like, all right, who do you want me to contact? And I told him all these. He's like, bro, there's no way you're playing Division I baseball. And pro ball, that's not a thing. You're not playing that. There's no way. So give me some Division IIIs and some JUCOs, and I'll contact them.
I mean,
basically walked out and I said, fuck you. I'm going to figure this thing out. And he was right at that time. Yeah. He was right. I was not that player. I just wasn't mentally. I wasn't maturity. I wasn't skill set wise. There's a lot of things there, but literally telling a kid not knowing who they are and telling them that they can't play.
That's why I would preface that with saying right now.
Yes, right now. Yeah.
That's not saying in the future that you couldn't be. That's why I've had those conversations a million times, and I literally say, guys, this is always a fluid answer, and it can always go both ways. It's like if you don't make the team right now, that doesn't mean, 2 years down the road or next year or next fall that you're not making this team, because people change, people develop differently. One of my favorite stories is a guy who's currently pitching in college who played for us. His name's Evan Spears, and he's a right-handed pitcher for a Division II school in McKendree University. Evan came to a tryout. I still remember this, his freshman year. He didn't make his freshman team. He came in like the spring to try out for us. And we were looking at him. He was good. Like, I thought he was good enough to make a freshman team, but he didn't.
But he's another third-team guy.
Third team to start out. And so we gave him a chance because we thought he looked pretty good as a pitcher. And then he went back the next year, made his high school. Then all of a sudden, his junior year, he's one of their best starters. His senior year, he's their number one. And he was a great dude for us all those years. And now he's a starter in college. Well, again, I think Evan is a great testament to this. And he had a good support system. He had a good family. He has good people around him who didn't let him quit, because I'm sure he was like, well, if they don't think I'm good enough, I probably shouldn't be playing, right? But people would tell him, no, keep going. Keep working. Keep worrying about you. Don't worry about your situation. Worry about you. Take care of your things. And then he did over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden, look, he's a different guy. That just happens. I mean, that's the Michael Jordan story, right? He gets cut from his high school basketball team. He's arguably the best player ever to play the game. Gets cut. If he would have listened to that coach and let rejection kind of set in, we would have never been able to witness that. You would have never had that series on, that went, viral.
Last Dance.
Yeah, you would have never had it.
Well, that's the difference between winners and losers. Evan is a winner. And you can tell when he played the game, he didn't care what field he was on. He just cared, how am I going to get this guy out?
Right.
How am I going to pitch this guy out? Like, I remember back when he was a freshman, I subbed in for one of their teams, for his team, and he already pitched the other day. He's like, Spike, let me go in there. I can close it out. I got one more inning in me. Let me just go in there and throw it. I'm like, no, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. Because he threw 60 pitches.
Yeah.
And finally, he's like, we need this out. It was bases loaded. I was like, all right, go warm up. Get yourself going. This is last inning. And so the bases were loaded, and I got him in, and he ended up striking that guy out on 2 pitches because he came in the middle of the at-bat. That's the difference between a guy that is literally sitting there and he's like, one of the guys that sits there and says, oh, I'm on 3rd team. I'm on 4th team. Right. I'm on 2nd team. Or even, I'm on a bad organization. I can't believe I'm in this situation. Right. He didn't care about that. All he cared about is that there is another human being 60'6" away from me, and I got to figure out how to get that guy out.
It's noise. It's drowning out the noise.
It's smack talk, man. It's definitely smack talk. Like, kids love getting in other kids' heads. They love it.
At the end of the day, if you're really working towards something, what does it matter? Like, there's going to be rejection. There's going to be failure. There's going to be times. There's going to be a ton of people just letting you know that tell you you're not good enough. I mean, there are so many people in the world that literally will just they like doing it, right? And you're going to hear it. And there's a way to go about that. It's not like, hey man, you're wrong, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would go about it in the way of, I'm always going to believe where I'm going. No one's going to tell me I can't. There's going to be obstacles, but that doesn't mean quit and pivot. I mean, there might be a time for that in a day, but not today, right?
The only story that matters is what you tell yourself.
That's true. There you go. You said it a lot better than I did right there.
Narratives are very interesting. Obviously, with social media world, I'm obsessed with narratives.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm big into finances.
Yep.
I came across a tweet about, obviously, I like the whole premise around cryptocurrencies. I love studying it, and I'm a macro guy.
And this is podcast number 27 that he's mentioned that on.
I'm a big macro guy, so I love studying different markets, and I like hearing new theories. Yeah. And if you're not familiar with it, there's the Keynesians and there's the Austrians, and it's just a big battle between what's right, what's wrong. And a PhD economist came out with a really good thread. A lot of people rejected that narrative around Bitcoin, and they got really pissed off. It pissed off a whole bunch of people. But the ones that were very interesting were the ones that actually opened up to the idea and having the thought of, okay, this person's saying this, but I still don't believe them. As a person that is going after a career, you have to have that same premise of, I hear you, but I still don't believe you because there are some variables that you're not considering. One, my intangibles. You look at me on the surface area. How I run, how I throw, how I actually approach the field. But you don't know what I'm doing outside of the field, the hours that I'm putting in, the narrative that you're building around yourself.
Yeah.
Because those are the hours that people don't see. And that's where you can actually hear them, put it off to the side and say, that's interesting, but you're still wrong.
Right.
Until you come up with something better, I'm still not going to believe you.
Well, I mean, it's how you take it. Are you using it as fuel, or are you using it as, fire, basically? Or are you letting it dictate your next move in a positive or negative way? Again,
it's not shutting off those people.
Correct.
That's what I want to get a point across with this whole Twitter thread, is that you're not shutting off that person.
Correct.
That's the worst thing that you could do.
Because then you're almost not taking the criticism correctly.
Yes.
Because then it's almost like you're just saying, well, everybody's out to get me, everybody hates me, that type of a situation. Yeah. Rather than looking at it, okay, well, maybe why? Have you ever asked yourself that?
Why do you see that? Yeah.
Why? Why did you not want me? Why did I make this team? Or why did, whatever it might be, why? Because maybe there's an answer there that can help you in the future. Maybe there's not. Maybe that person it's not your cup of tea, or you're not their cup of tea. But maybe there's an answer in there that can help you, right? I always like that, actually, when when in the past when we've had a kid either not make a certain team or not make the organization, I've always really respected the kid who has called me up and asked me that question. And I've tried to be extremely honest there. X, Y, Z, this is why. Because I always viewed it as giving that kid some really good, positive feedback to help him get better. And then generally those kids have been like, I appreciate that. I'm going to go work at that. Now you can tell they will.
Rafi had a really good point yesterday about showcases. And he would say he'd do about 2 or 3 showcases each year. He lived in Florida, so he had an easier access to
a lot of access
to perfect game events.
Yeah.
So he didn't have to spend all that flight money going down there and everything like that. But he would do a lot of those showcases. And I asked him, what was the big showcase that you liked a lot? He's like, the perfect game underclass in Fort Myers, Florida. I was like, why is that? Because there was a crap ton of kids. And I could see, that guy is way better than me on defense. I better work on my defense. Or that guy had a really good spinner. I need to work on my approach on hitting curveballs. It was like he was gathering opinions and experience right off the get-go. That's why we play travel baseball. That's why we're in this whole thing, is because you only have a certain amount of talent in your local municipality.
Right.
We go to Grand Park, we go to Atlanta, we go to Fort Myers, not just to spend money and have an experience. That's great. Having experience is perfectly fine. But if you are a person that wants to play at the Division I or the professional level, you've got to get exposed to that talent. Now, if you're not, there are different experiences for you. And we've talked about that previously on the podcast, which is each their own. I think that's perfectly fine. I'm all about it. But if you're a person that wants to play at the top level, you've got to go to these different locations, whether that is Joplin, that's Kansas City. If you're in California, down to Arizona in the spring training facilities.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to really get the experience and the opinion of others that's going to be valuable for you to make those adjustments.
Yeah, and then you literally I've told players in exit interviews every single year, I'm going to tell you right now where you're at. I'm going to give you those answers. And then I want you to go talk to your coaches, and I want you to talk to your trainers and get those answers too. And then my advice would be, do that every 4 to 6 months. Just continuously do it. Because then and ask them to be super truthful. Because then at least you know where you're at. Right? If you get rejected, ask why. If you didn't do something, ask why. Because you get answers. The absolute worst thing you can do in that situation is get overly angry about it and just shut them off, like you said, because you don't have an answer of why. You don't have an answer of what can I get better at, right?
Or you have such a strong dogma behind you that you end up going from a situation where they have all the resources, all the good coaches, expert opinion, and then you go to another position that doesn't have the resources, doesn't have the coaches, and you're just taking the name of I'm gonna do top team level scout underclass world championship team that travels to Japan.
Yeah.
Good. You did it. You got on the top team. Congratulations.
And by the way, if you do ask why and that coach doesn't give you an answer, then you probably know you probably weren't right for that situation anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If that coach or that whatever that person is in that level of authority, if they are not willing to give you those hard, truthful answers, then you're probably better off somewhere else anyhow. Just a thought.
I would implore a lot of players who are listening to this because we have guys that are dealing with this on a recruiting level to go to college. And this works really well for academics too. So if you're not planning on playing in college, you want to be surrounded by people that are going to challenge your belief systems, challenge your thoughts, and also root for you at the same time and be behind you. Does that mean that you go to WashU, or does that mean you go to Harvard? I don't know. I don't know what those cultures are like.
Right.
Is it just because you're going there because of the status? Because you have Harvard behind your name? Or is it you're going to, let's just use an example, SLU? It's a good school.
Sure. It's a great school.
But is the culture right?
Don't make a decision based on status. Make a decision based for you.
Bingo.
That's what it gets to. A lot of people, well, we are a status-driven culture, right? It's
Without a doubt.
It's just everybody wants to be associated with that. It's like,
you want to be associated with winners. You want to be associated. Here's the point. You want to be associated with winners, and you want to feel good about your decision.
Yeah.
But what if you become the winner and you drive the culture?
Right.
That's the point.
Right. And that's when, again, it goes back. I feel like I'm a broken record, but it goes back to if you ask a bunch of those questions, you find out what's right for you. If you do your homework, if you study, if you research, if you really kind of ask the hard questions to yourself about what you care and want and need, then you'll know those answers. And if you don't, you're going to make status decisions.
Yep.
Because status decisions are the easy ones. That's almost like just going with the in crowd wherever they are, right? You might not need to be in that crowd. You might need to be in some other crowd, but you'll never know that if you don't ask.
Well, and here's another good point: is that college might not be for everybody.
Sure,
that's the thing. Is
100%.
like there are guys that go say they punt college and say, I'm not going to do this right now, and I'm going to go after experiences.
Yeah,
and they end up becoming uber successful.
Sure.
So that's where I'm getting at. Like, drive towards the group, drive towards the culture that you're looking for, and being a person that can also be a part of that culture, that you can find your own leadership, your own confidence, and building up your skill set.
I think when you look back at things, because I know I've done this myself, whenever I look back at the easy decisions, the quick decisions I've made, they've generally not been like the best. You know what I'm saying? When I haven't put thought into it, when I haven't put time and effort into it, whenever I've made really hard decisions, they've generally been correct. I
have a really good example of this.
Give it to me.
So me and my wife were going to go on vacation, right? Mm-hmm. Or my wife and I. Better
grammar, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. We were supposed to go to Jamaica.
Yep.
And we ended up going into the Jamaican health organization. I don't know what they call it, but you had to submit your form and say if you're COVID or not COVID. Yeah. And they literally say, you're a high risk person. We're like, holy cow, we're high risk. So what does that mean? We got to look at what the actually entails, and it says, oh, you're going to have to quarantine when you get there. I'm like, bro, I don't want to sit in a hotel room. And because it wasn't, we had a resort, so could we get out of the hotel room? Could we not? So I made a really brash decision right then and there. And I was like, hey, babe, do you want to go to Mexico? Because the same resort company has a place in Mexico that we can go to.
Sure.
And she goes, oh yeah, let's just do it. Go ahead, book it. So I literally I switched our resort to Mexico, not thinking what was going on. Mm-hmm. And literally we got ourselves in a spider web of entanglement because there's a hurricane that's going right through Mexico, and I didn't know that. So I'm dealing with COVID, I'm dealing with a hurricane. I made a brash decision, and it ended up being a nightmare to untangle. So it goes back to your point, is like actually making those hard decisions, even if it's a vacation, like trying to figure out, like,
take time, do your due diligence.
We're going to cancel this. We're going to punt it. We're going to go later on down in the year. Yeah.
Or I mean, in research, it doesn't have to be like sitting on a computer or doing this. Just talk to people, get their, don't talk to one, talk to 20, get their opinions, see like who, what was your expectations or what was your experiences there? And see what you get. And
valuable opinions, not just posting it online and then you get all these bots
generally,
that come up.
Let's say you talk to 20 people, you get 20 different opinions. You're going to have 2-3 that love everything ever, and you get 2-3 that hate it, and then generally in the middle, you're going to find out what that experience is like.
Oh, that's a really good point.
So, again, it's when we're talking about rejection, we're talking about not getting the answers you want now. It doesn't mean you can't get the answers you want later.
My closing pitch on all this, and it's literally one sentence: don't quit on yourself. Rejection is horrible, but the worst thing that could happen out of all of it is quitting.
Yeah. I think my closing pitch would be, you got to understand you. And nobody can understand you like you. It's not possible because you're with yourself 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And there's a lot of thoughts, and you know your wants. You know where you want to go. Ultimately, if you ask yourself the tough questions, you know where you want to be. You know what you want to do. You know what you love. You know what you hate. So when you start to really think about things, or if somebody tells you you're not good enough, well, if you really want it, you're going to overcome that rejection. You're going to work past that. You're going to find out why you got rejected, and you're going to try to, beat that down again and never let it happen, right? Because nobody likes that feeling. But use that feeling as fuel if that is something you really want. It has to be something you really want. Otherwise, you're going to use that rejection as, I'm going to go on to something else. If you really want it, go find out why, and then go find out how you can overcome that. Because you're going to be way better on the other side of that mountain. I promise. There's so many success stories of that. There's so many, you hear actually more times than not, the most successful people in the world are that way because they've understood how to overcome rejection and failure.
It's grit.
They've understood that.
It's definitely grit.
And it happens to them over and over and over again. And all they do is they keep going, all right, why did it happen this time? Now I got to go do this. Now I got to pivot. Now I got to go figure out how to get better at that.
Dude, it's the same thing with our organization. Like, there's been so many times where I'm just like, you know what? F this.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to satisfy the customer. I don't know how to help our players better. Like, it just gets to a point where I'm just like, I've exhausted all my resources. But then I literally take an hour break and sleep it off, and I come back at it.
Wow.
And I just one of the things I learned the most out of being in the financial services, probably the best advice I've gotten out of it, the first thing that they said, just show up. Just put your foot through the door.
Well, you said something there too that's a good point. You didn't make that emotional decision. You kind of took your time and made the rational decision.
Yep.
Emotions never really go good with decision making. So, again, you get rejected, take a little bit of time, try to figure it out, work around it.
Guys, that's this episode of The Closing Pitch. I am actually done with my French press coffee.
It was good, Spike.
You're good?
Yeah, I left a little bark in there for you.
I need to figure out a name for my coffee company inside of the national headquarters. Hey, this could be big. We could take this mainstream, Dave. Me and you.
I'll let you do that solo podcast.
Please subscribe to The Closing Pitch. We have the Tiger Interview series. Please subscribe to that. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I don't even think anyone uses Google Podcasts. I think that's just off on its own. And then also the YouTube channels. Closing Pitch has its own YouTube channel. And then the Tiger Interview series is on the Rawlings Tigers YouTube channel. Please give us those reviews on Apple Podcasts. That helps us a ton. If you're on YouTube and watching this, comment below something. If you just want to say hey or hi Dave, please do that. Please do that as well, because that helps push the video out towards the algorithm and everyone gets to watch Dave's beautiful face. So thanks, guys, and we'll catch you in the next episode. See ya.